Is the vehicle lag in multiplayer a challenge? Oh, hell yeah. It's like anything that has to do with like physics in multiplayer is like pain in the ass. Just because of like all the different like use cases and states that can happen. It's a mess. It's an actual mess. Just having, okay, so I usually use this example whenever I talk about the complexity of multiplayer, right? So say that you have a light switch in your game, right? You have a light switch, right? You walk up to it, you press the button, it turns on the light, right? Okay. That's two states on that light switch. It's on or off. There's also two states on the light switch itself, or like the switch itself, right? So, okay, 4 potential states there, right? There's also like the cases of like, if there's bugs in the game, which you have to like kind of think about as well, like the different potential states, unless you make something deterministic where you know that like, I mean, it's possible to program a light switch where you cannot turn on the light unless the switch is in this state, which you can check locally, okay? Right? Locally, okay? Right. Multiplayer makes that 10 times more complicated. That simple example. Just because you can have states where client can walk up to a switch and flick it and nothing happens, okay? And you're like, that's annoying. We should give the client some feedback when they're hitting the switch that they did hit the switch. All right, you walk up to the switch and you flick it and nothing happens. Like, then nothing happens. Because like then there's cases of like, what if the switch is on server but it's not on client? Like, what is the issue? Like, there's a bunch of reasons why the issue can happen. Like, is it locally on client where the bug is happening? Like, or is it not receiving the replication of the switch? So it just ends up that like that light switch can be in so many different states by itself. And that's just from like the simple 2-state example. Now, let's look at vehicles where there are a lot more states because you're driving. And there's also movement, which is also like, you can't, in networking, you can't like have a server tell a client like, here's where the car is, here's where the car is, here's where the car is, here's where the car is. Because that makes it super laggy because the update rate on client will not match the server. And it's like almost, it's like theoretically possible, I guess, but it's like almost practically impossible to have them do that. So what you need is you need to have client-side prediction, where the client will be like, I think the V is gonna be over here. But then you have the problem like, okay, but when the server tells the client that, no, the car is over here, then you need to adjust for that. But if you adjust for that every time you get a message from the server, then you're going to end up in the same situation where the vehicle is just like constantly lagging around. So which means that you have to have client-side prediction that's also smart enough to like figure out how to handle when states mismatch. Would happen all the time because, you know, client-side prediction can only do so much. Like you can only predict so much. It's kind of like rolling a die and be like, it might be a 6. And if it's not 6, you're like, oh, it's 2. Like, this is a weird way to explain this, but it's complicated, okay? That's what I'm trying to get at here. Like, there's so many variables in play and so many things that can go wrong. And you need to make, like, smart systems to make it fluent for the player on the client side, etc., etc. So it's just like, yeah, client-side speculation. It's just like, it's such a mess making multiplayer games, you guys. It's a miracle that the game works in multiplayer right now. But the positive thing here is that there's still so many things we can do to optimize. There's still like, it's not like we're in a position where we don't know what to do next to improve multiplayer. Like we have a big list. So yeah. Long story short, yes, it's very tricky to do vehicles and client, or it's very complicated. 6 plus 6 is 4.